Ever wanted an unbeatable tank on your team? Today we're diving into the best SO build guide for Shorekeeper in Wuwa. She's broken AF at SO, and we'll show you how to unlock her full power. Let's dive in. So, who is Shorekeeper? Why is everyone talking about her? If you've been playing Wuwa for a while, you know how important it is to have a solid tank who can soak up damage and keep your team alive, right? Well, Shorekeeper takes that role and cranks it up to 11. At first glance, you might think Shorekeeper is just another tank, but really? Just another tank? That couldn't be further from the truth. At SO, which is her starting ascension, she's already a powerhouse. The cool thing about Shorekeeper is that she's not just about defense. She brings a unique mix of tankiness, self-healing, and even a bit of crowd control, or CC for those of you who love stuns and knockbacks. Let's be honest, most SO can take a few hits, but they don't truly shine until they've been ascended a few times, right? Not a Shorekeeper. Right out of the gate, she's ready to hold the line in any battle. Why? It's all about her Tidal Barrier and Abyssal Surge abilities. Tidal Barrier? Yeah, it sounds like just another damage reduction move, but it's way more than that. This skill essentially makes Shorekeeper an unkillable wall. She reduces incoming damage by a massive percentage. And when fully upgraded, it's almost like watching the enemies try to punch through a brick wall. Really? They don't stand a chance. Plus, if you time it right, this skill can last through some of the hardest hitting enemy phases. Next up, we've got Abyssal Surge. This is where things really get interesting. This ability doesn't just heal Shorekeeper, it heals her over time. It's like a built-in survival kit. And the best part? It boosts her resistance and even more damage while healing. You're basically getting a 2-for-1 deal. Heal and damage reduction. And it's even better in long fights, where the constant healing lets her tank for days. This makes her a perfect fit for those tricky PvE boss battles, where the fight just keeps dragging on. The Shorekeeper won't just survive, she'll dominate. Alright, enough with the overview. You're here to build the best Shorekeeper at SO, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Here's where we get into the nitty-gritty. First, let's talk about gear. You want Shorekeeper to be as tanky as possible, right? So for her armor, we're aiming for something that maximizes her physical and magical defense. Think of it like this. Her armor is the foundation of her strength. The best gear for her at SO? Guardian's Plate Armor. This piece is a lifesaver, literally. It maxes out both her defenses and helps keep her standing in those long, drawn-out battles. But don't forget her weapon. At SO, she benefits massively from the Titan Breaker Halberd. Yeah, it's not the flashiest weapon, but hear me out. It doesn't just give her decent attack stats, it also boosts her health, and more health means more tankiness. It's all about turning Shorekeeper into an unkillable tank she was meant to be. And when it comes to trinkets, you're going to want something that increases her healing efficiency and her resistance to damage. We recommend the Resonating Coral Orbs for this. Why? Because Shorekeeper's healing is already strong, but with these, she's pretty much healing herself for more than the enemies can dish out. It's crazy. Let's talk skills, because how you build Shorekeeper's abilities at SO will define how well she performs. A lot of players make the mistake of spreading their points too thin, but we're not doing that here. We're going to prioritize. First up, the skill you want to pump points into is Tidal Barrier. This should be your top priority. Maxing this out early will make sure you have that massive damage reduction, and it's what makes Shorekeeper such an unbreakable tank. Next is Abyssal Surge. Once Tidal Barrier is beefed up, start upgrading Abyssal Surge for that healing over time. You don't need it maxed out right away, but it's definitely going to be your second focus. The healing, combined with Tidal Barrier's damage reduction, makes Shorekeeper practically immortal in most fights. Shell Shock is a little different. You don't need to invest heavily in it at the start, but once you've got your defensive skills sorted, throw some points into it. The AoE stun it provides is perfect for crowd control in PvP or against waves of enemies in PvE. This is going to save your team by stopping enemies in their tracks. And finally, there's the Crashing Wave. It's useful for even more CC. And although it's not your primary focus, having it ready for late game fights when enemies are bunched up or unleashing high damage abilities is a game changer. You can lock down entire groups of enemies with this. That's why it's so important in PvP or in high-level content. Building a Shorekeeper is one thing, using her properly is another. The key to dominating with her is all about timing. So, when do you pop the title barrier? You want to use it right at the start of a fight when enemies start to target her. It's the perfect opener because it lets her absorb all the damage that would otherwise wreck your DPS units. You wait too long to use it, you might miss that crucial damage reduction. So use it early and often. Then Abyssal Surge should be your go-to skill once Shorekeeper's health starts to dip. But remember, don't use it too early. You want to get the full value out of the healing over time. So wait until she's taken a decent chunk of damage before hitting that button. And don't forget to save Shell Shock for when enemies start gathering up, or when you see him casting a big ability. The stun it provides can disrupt some of the most dangerous moves in the game, making it a clutch ability in PvP especially. Now, let's talk about team comps. Shorekeeper is a tank, right? So, you want to pair her with high damage but squishy characters. The ones who can't take a hit but can dish out massive damage. The ideal team setup with Shorekeeper would be something like this: DPS, healer, and another support DPS hybrid. A character like Blade Dancer works great because they could focus on pure damage while Shorekeeper holds the front line. Add in a solid healer like Water Priestess to ensure that your team stays topped up, and you're golden. But don't forget about her synergy with characters like Rover. With a Rover in the team, you'll gain an additional 10% energy regen. This speeds up Shorekeeper's ability to use her powerful abilities and reduce downtime, allowing her to sustain her team through even the longest fights. Combining Shorekeeper's tanking prowess with Rover's energy boost can turn any battle into a much smoother experience. They work like a well-oiled machine, making sure your team stays in the fight longer. You can also try a burst comp with characters like Void Reaper or Thunderfist. The idea here is that Shorekeeper holds the line while these heavy hitters unload their damage. And with Shorekeeper's ability to absorb so much punishment, they're free to focus on nothing but destruction. But what about her counters? Every character has weaknesses, right? Shorekeeper isn't invincible, even though she's close. The key counters to Shorekeeper are characters who specialize in piercing damage, or have abilities that ignore her tankiness, like Flameblade. But don't worry, there are ways to handle these threats. Equip Shorekeeper with resistance enhancing gear, like the Abyssal Chains, which grant resistance to CC effects. This will help negate some of the advantages these anti-tank characters have, making Shorekeeper even harder to bring down. Another great tactic, make sure she's paired with a strong disruptor in PvP, like Void Phantom, who can keep enemies on their toes while a Shorekeeper does what she does best. Alright, so let's bring it all together. Shorekeeper at SO is an absolute monster in both PvE and PvP. Her title barrier and Abyssal Surge make her nearly impossible to kill, while her Shell Shock and Crashing Wave keep enemies locked down, giving your team time to wreck shop. The gear, the skills, the timing, it all comes together to make the Shorekeeper broken AF. If you've been on the fence about whether to invest in her, just do it. Really. She's going to change the way you approach tanking in WoWa, and once you get the build right, she's going to be your go-to for the toughest battles in the game. But it's not just about making Shorekeeper unkillable. It's about how well she helps the rest of your team perform. Her ability to amplify your damage dealers and provide buffs across the board is what really sets her apart from other tanks. Think of her as the glue that holds your entire strategy together. Without her, your damage dealing characters might fall apart. But with her, they can push to new heights. That's why she's not just a tank, she's the key to unlocking your team's full potential. Thanks for sticking with us through this Shorekeeper SO build guide. Be sure to leave a comment below if you've tried this build and let us know how it's working for you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more WoWa guides and gameplay. See you in the next one.